It's been a fast and furious recruiting process. Obviously really accelerated by the deal with January 2nd it opening up, and then getting guys on campus and on board. And so first of all, I got to thank just everyone who works in academics, all of our administrators, our off the field staff. They did such a tremendous job because we had the entire building packed on January 2nd, so not a ton of a break, and then just the turnaround to get guys here, to get transcripts in, to get guys enrolled after they committed and signed. Doing the rev share on campus, so our administrators again helping with that and getting all that paperwork done. It was a lot of work in a short amount of time. So excited about it. We just signed 3 high school kids today. Before that, we had brought in 36 overall signings so far. We have 3 scholarships left in our back pocket, just one on both sides of the ball and then just kind of a floater. So this year, the great thing is we'll be going into spring with 90 of our 105-man roster, which is huge. So we'll have the majority of our guys right here. Some of the guys we've already signed won't get here until the summer, but the overwhelming majority of 2026 Aggie football team will be here on campus. So excited about that. There was areas we needed to address, like everybody. With the turnover, obviously I think we did a better job of retention this year, and revenue share helped quite a bit with that, so that's really big, especially on the defensive side. Offensively, we need to do a little bit more of an overhaul, and you can kind of see that reflected in the numbers of some of the guys that we brought in. So we're excited about the way we've improved all the rooms. Now it's time to go compete, but the one thing that's really exciting is no spring transfer portal. So this will be the first time in 3 years that we've been able to go ahead and recruit a group of young men, bring them in here and coach them for a full solid year. So the things that, we've always believed in, culture, that toughness, commitment to one another, I think it has a chance to hold a lot more weight when you've been around each other for a full calendar year. That care factor raises a little bit. Again, riding for the brand, playing for New Mexico State, being familiar with your coaches, and then the most important thing, being familiar with your playbook, being familiar with your job, the things that you need to do. We have a full year of training and diving into that. So excited about that. So from there, I kind of just, I'll open it up to questions. We can bounce around different position groups and go from there.
Trey Higgins, the guy you got from his kind of answer the quarterback competition. How do you feel like that's going to be reflected on you guys needing to find someone new at that position?
Well, the thing about it is, it became, kind of weird as we had at the end of last year. We get into that last game, in that overtime game, and we got our number 2 in there, and our 2 breaks his leg, and then your 3 goes in there, and you just struggle down the stretch. And we wanted to make sure that we had a really competitive quarterback room. Obviously, Trey's the guy everyone's talking to coming on in, but Kalani's another guy from Diamond Valley Junior College, threw for over 3,000 yards. He's a redshirt freshman, so he's got a bunch of years to go. It's going to be good competition there. So Adam coming on back, Trey coming in, Kalani. We like that room. Those guys have been out there on weekends throwing, so we've got a chance to kind of just take a sneak peek and look at those guys. And we have 3 very capable guys of being able to battle. We'll bring 1 more arm in for sure, and then another walk-on quarterback to kind of add 5 into that room. But going into spring, we expect it to be stiff competition. And regardless of red shirt, regardless of any of that stuff, it's going to be a full-on out competition.
You guys responded to the lack of a running game this year with some three good running backs. You guys had James Jones, got some power conference offers. Xavier Rucker was a GT commit. And Terrell Washington was a power 5 back, or power 4, yes. Just how do you feel about the running backs that you got? How do you feel like that will help you guys have a run game next year that you didn't really have?
Yeah, again, it's one of those deals where, it's old spilt milk, but, when you lose a guy like Seth McGowan at the end last year, and now you're trying to fill the room back up, and you're doing it in June, it's tough to do, and obviously, little bit to be desired there. So with these 3 guys coming on in early, Xavier Rucker, the young man we just signed today out of Georgia. If you watch film on him, he's a dynamic kid. So we feel like we've done a really good job beefing up that running back room. James, anytime you got a guy with 90 some odd carries over 900 yards, that's 10 yards a carry. That's pretty darn good at any level. So excited about him. Washington's done a great job so far in the offseason running around. So again, with the guys we're bringing back and the 3 backs we brought in, we feel like we have a chance to bolster that room. And again, with the addition of the offensive lineman, that's going to be really, really big. We felt like, when you looked at last year's team, you returned, in spring, we had a couple of guys that were coming back that were returning, and then, post departures after spring football, when you came back, you had Lee that had played a little bit, you had BJ that had played a little bit. Lee went down with a knee injury against Tulsa. He was out for the season, and so you had a group of guys that just had not played a lot of college football. Now we bring in 7 guys, and 5 of them have almost 20 starts under their belt. They've played a lot of really good football, at a high level. So we're excited about the guys we have coming back and the experience we brought in the offensive line room. So I think as much as any running back we brought in, that offensive line is going to make a big difference in the way we're able to run the football.
Where on the listed offensive line kind of rank in terms of priorities? Because I saw you guys offered a lot of them, Cano, and all of you guys are pretty busy trying to recruit them. How much of a priority was that this offseason?
It was huge. I mean, obviously, I think every football organization everywhere starts off with quarterback. When the quarterback goes, you go. But then after that, we knew the number one thing we needed to do on this football team was improve the offensive line. If our offensive line play improved, then all those close losses have a chance to flip. Right? We have to be able to run the football, especially late in games. Again, 2 years in a row in the Liberty game, it's literally come down to us not being able to get a first down at the end to seal the game and win it. Right? So those are things that we knew we had to improve and get better at. So I think with this offensive line coming in, and we have some major battles. I'll tell you what. Right now, I think all over the country at every level, we all have our own issues, but there's just a limited amount of guys, big guys that can play at this level, and everyone's battling over them. So hats off to Coach Canova. I thought he and the staff did a really, really good job of bringing some good players up and winning some tough battles. Every one of those guys we got was a tough battle down at the end.
Coach, obviously, the portal's ever changing, but now that you've kind of done this a couple of times, and around the country, teams have understood kind of maybe the basics if the portal, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What are some of the differences that you guys approached this portal cycle from things that you learned from previous cycles?
Well, number one, I always believe that, you can't put a price on experience, right? Guys that are coming up, guys that have played at a Division II level, a 1AA level, guys that are moving up, that have actually played and been successful, put high premium on those guys. You look at our program, heck, just look at Ole Miss, right, and their quarterback. And, it's those guys that have played and performed and done well, they seem to make the jump a whole lot faster, right? Sometimes guys coming down, and we've taken a couple guys that have come down and done really well, but sometimes guys that just haven't played, there's a reason they haven't played. Not always, but sometimes it's true. So we put a lot of stock into guys that have played. And then the guys that are making lateral moves, for whatever reason, we just want to make sure we do a good job of vetting them. We got a great offensive lineman out of UTEP, who started all 12 games for him last year after playing junior college. That was huge, getting him. But again, there's video evidence of what they can do. So our biggest thing is, we don't want to spend a lot of time watching practice tape. We want to watch game film on the guys that we bring in. So that's really good. Guys like Trey coming on in, even JUCO guys like Kalani, that's a big thing. So again, just kind of knowing their history, their background, knowing the amount of time that they've played, because if you're bringing in an older guy, right, nothing worse than having a group of older guys and half of them are sitting around and they're ticked off because they're not playing you. You want guys who are going to come in and compete. And at the same time, you want to bring a handful of young guys in to develop. I think the biggest thing this year, compared to the past, is just knowing that you have a little bit more of development time with these guys because you've got them for a full year. So you might give a little more wiggle room to a guy because you're going to have them through spring and all through the summer and then throughout fall camp, where in the past, some of these guys you didn't know if you were going to have them the entire time, And again, with your current roster, I think this is probably one of the biggest things, at least at this level, was with your current roster, right? There's always, when you bring guys in, very rarely do you bring a guy in and then he goes back into the portal. I think that happened to us once last year. But with your older guys that have been successful, who decided to stay, you're waiting for that earth to shake when you get to that spring portal, right? And then, we used to always have to try to anticipate, okay, we always had a hit list. Who could we lose? So you're not just recruiting to fill the roster. You're recruiting in case the earth does shake and you do lose these guys, right? Whereas this year, you knew that, Gabe Peterson's coming back. Brady Vaselli's coming back. Henry Davis is coming back. You knew certain guys, they're coming back. They're not going anywhere, right? So when you know that, it totally changes your philosophy and the way you're able to recruit.
In terms of just trying to recruit guys, how do you try and vet a kid when you really only get to talk to him over the course of a week or 2 weeks, as opposed to a high school kid we were talking to him throughout his senior and junior seasons?
Yeah, high school guys you get to know a whole lot better. When the transfer portal opens up on January 2nd, and then it closes on the 17th, you're like, okay, so technically you're only supposed to talk to these guys within these 2 week periods, right? I kind of have a funny feeling people talk to our players a whole lot earlier than that, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, you're right. I think the biggest thing is honesty. You know what I'm saying? When you do bring the guys in, you have honest conversations over the phone about where you are rev share wise, about how you want to use them. Again, it's about just to get certain guys on trips. And then once you get them here, you don't have to rose color everything. You just got to have a good, honest conversation about, how you view that player, how you think they can help you, how you can help them, and just make sure they're a right fit. Some guys come in, quite honestly, and you can tell. I mean, there was, one instance where we had a guy come in, and after a day and a half, we realized that this is not a guy that we want to, offer scholarship to, and so that relationship ended, and I'm sure it happens for the players with us too, but I think you've got to have real adult, honest conversations.
Coach, just want to touch on Jadarius Sanders, obviously just down the street from here, a
Yeah.
true freshman. Just what did you like from his game? And I know obviously still a true freshman, but what are you kind of expecting from him in his first year?
Well, he can run. I mean, anytime you get a guy that's over 6'3", who's a sub 1100 meter runner, you can't get enough of those guys on your roster. So again, he's a guy that we knew through the junior year. He came to our camp, participated. So we developed the relationship then. We got an early commitment from him. We watched him play games this year. He's a guy that, again, kind of old school, genuine relationship. We've known him for a long time. We consider, El Paso our hometown when it comes to recruiting. I'm sure they do too, but there's a lot of really good players there. And for them, it gives them an opportunity to kind of move 45, 50 minutes down the road. So they're away from home, but they're kind of still at home. Their families get a chance to be a part of it. So the more players you get in their roster that can play at a high level from El Paso, I think is a big deal for us. So Jadarius is a great kid, and we're excited to have him. And I think he'll come in and push and compete because he runs extremely well.
Tatum's back. Just what was it like, trying to reestablish a contact with him, I guess, and coming back in.
It's huge having him back. He's kind of like Gabe Peterson, just a year later. And I think one of the things that's really good and healthy for us is that I think we've done a really good job of creating good relationships with our players. And when the opportunity does come for them to move on because someone is offering them, substantial amount of money, we're there to help them. At the end of the day, we don't want to get in the way of things like that, but we have open and honest conversations. We had guys who came in our office this year and was like, hey, coach, this school's offering us this much money, and we kind of work through the process, and we kind of have an idea now, like where the money's at. Like, are they offering you to be a role guy? Are they offering you to be a starter? Things like that. So again, when Tatum left, there was no hard feelings. We wanted him to stay. We tried to get him to stay, but he got offered a lot more money to go somewhere else. Went there and he didn't play as much as he did here, and I think he realized that he had a great opportunity here to be a really impactful guy here for a long, long time. So when he went in the portal, he was looking for an opportunity to come in and play, and he had already done that here. He played 800 snaps his redshirt freshman year, so that's a lot of snaps. One of the better safeties in conference. So great thing for us is when you lose a guy like Nate Mitchell and all of a sudden Tatum Barnes pops right in and you're like, hey man, we can fill that role right away. So he's already shown it. He's got some natural leadership and some toughness that he brings to the table. I told him no more kicking balls into the stands, right? We did that one time a couple of years ago. But we love his energy, and his moxie, and he's matured a little bit, and he's grown up, and I think he's going to be a huge contributor to this season.
For defensive line, there's some UTSA line that have followed up Haynes over from there. Just first, what do you feel made Haynes stand out for the new deal, coach? Just how do you feel about getting some of his guys to come over to join you guys' D-line?
Well, bringing those two guys over from UTSA is a big deal, and I think Cayenne, I think he had a chance to really develop into a really, really good player. And then Vic Shaw started a bunch of games for him last year. So you get two guys in who come from a really good program. Coach Traylor does a great job. He's done a great job there for a long period of time. Having the relationship with Sadiq when those guys did go in the portal, there was a familiarity which really helped. So, again, bringing those two guys in, the sky's the limit for them. I think Vic, just off the film that he's shown and what he was able to do last year, is going to be a guy who's going to be a major impactful guy, not just on this team but in this conference.
Looking at the defense, obviously, it kind of sold itself last year. That was arguably your strongest part, forcing a turnover in every single game. So just what was your conversations with the guys who are coming in and new, just to kind of continue that success that you're seeing on that side of the ball?
Yeah, we talked about it quite a bit. Just, we did a good job of being a ball hawking defense and creating turnovers. There were some issues, and we've talked about it as a staff and with players too. I think, we stood at the end of the year, we had a real issue with starting off slow, giving up some early points, and then we always settled down, so we got to fix that a little bit. But, the biggest thing is it comes back down to the recruiting part, like who did you lose, right? Who's moved on. So when you looked at the defensive line, you lose a guy like Ezra, right? And, he's a dynamic pass rusher. He does a lot of things. You got to try to find a way to replace that guy, so that was something we really needed to do. For us, we were very fortunate. Fortunate and unfortunate. We were unfortunate that we lost Tyler last year, early in the season. But the fortunate part is both backers that started, 9+ games last year, are both returning. So we return those guys. Zayden Davis is a good young player coming on back. So we feel like we're great there. And then the safety spot, we lost Nate Mitchell, but all the rest of them were all returning. We're returning starting corner, So when you look around that defensive side, it was exciting to see how much, retention we had compared to years past. And then bringing guys in to compete is the biggest thing. At the corner spot, there's a spot that, obviously you got to compete at all of them, but there's one that's obviously wide open because of the departure right there. Depth is a big thing. We played a lot of guys, and even on both sides of the ball, recruiting running backs, you go back to that 2 years ago, we showed you can have two great backs that can rush for both over 800 yards and both playing in the Senior Bowl this year. So we've shown that, we're going to use a wide variety of guys on both sides of the ball. So I think that helped quite a bit.
Coach, in regards to that pass rushing kind of room, how do you feel about where that group is at? Obviously, you mentioned you have to replace a lot of production on that unit.
But yeah, you return both starting defensive ends, which is really nice, and then, you lose, Ezra's the biggest probably loss there because he's a really twitchy guy, different dude. So, obviously it's just developing the guys that we have and the guys we've brought in. It's just finding out who's going to be, who's going to be your dynamic pass rusher. Last year when we brought Ezra in, he had one opportunity and only one opportunity. Come here, I think he was ranked the #1 D tackle in some of the ranking systems, in the top 5 in all of them, and he only had one place to come, and that was here. You know what I'm saying? So again, I think we've done a good job of finding diamonds in the rough. We'll find out, here real soon whether or not we've got that type of guy. But I think in the past we've shown that we can bring good quality guys in. And that's the biggest thing. You don't want to put the cart before the horse. But I think it's been very obvious that we've recruited at a high level the last 2 seasons, but we've had a really tough time with the retention part. Our NIL outside of the university before was so small compared to a lot of teams that we played, and it was really tough to keep guys. This year, with the investment we've made in the program and with our ability to continue to recruit, if we brought in those same type of caliber guys and don't have to worry about losing them, it should bode well for us. We'll see.
How do you feel like the change at the end of this year started with NIL and trying to do everything more internally now? How do you feel like that can maybe help you guys with that?
Well, I think it starts with Conference USA. First of all, Conference USA realized that, and all these conferences have, we're having conversations at the conference level about where do we want to be at a minimum? Where do we want to be? Because if we don't invest in this thing, it's going to get away from us and get away from us fast. Right now I think there's a great opportunity for Conference USA to take a step forward. You look at the record in the bowl game this year and what we were able to do. That was really good to see. But at the end of the day, you're going to have some investment, and it starts with your presidents, and then it goes to your athletic directors, and then filters down to your different teams. So if you want to compete in this day and age, that is part of the equation.
You guys recruited a lot of good transfers coming in that could make an immediate impact. Do you wish you guys got more maybe high school guys as well to kind of build out a foundation, or do you feel like you guys are it kind of is what it is there?
I think when you look at it, we'll bring in overall high school guys. By the time it's all said and done, we'll probably have 7 high school guys in this class. Brought in a handful last year, about the same thing. So I think you're going to see at this level a smaller group. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, if you bring in a freshman and he plays a lot in his first year, right? Probably not a starter, but he plays a lot, right? He's going to have a great opportunity to elevate really fast, right? You're probably not going to keep that guy for 4 or 5 years. So, again, if you have the opportunity to do it, you get a guy like Jadarius, right? You want to bring that guy in, right? At the same time, when you do have attrition and you do lose guys like Donovan Fapel, right? You need to replace them with older guys. You need a certain amount of guys that are ready and locked and loaded to go win football games right now. And part of it is just being older, bigger, stronger, having been in the program. And that goes back to your question earlier, too. One of the biggest things when you bring guys in and you bring them in from college programs, right? They've watched film, they've been trained differently, they've eaten differently, they've lifted differently. They're coming in from college programs. So regardless of what level it is, they're going to have a little bit more to it than some of the JUCO guys even, right? Because of the resources that are added. So that's really helped us quite a bit. But yeah, do I miss the old days of bringing in, 24, 25 guys, watching them grow for 5 years, and, leaving here as young men? Yeah, absolutely I do. I don't think there's a coach in the country that would say that we don't kind of miss that relational thing. But, that ship sailed, you know what I'm saying? So now it's, you look at last year, I was looking at James Madison, right? They brought in 76 transfers last year, and they're a college playoff team. So at the end of the day, you do what you need to do to build your roster to win right now because, what did Rocky say? There is no tomorrow. Or that was Apollo Creed, I guess, told it to Rocky.
Go ahead.
I want to talk special teams. I feel like sometimes they get overlooked, but your kickers have been pretty noticeable, at least the 2 seasons I've been here, between Abe and Hawk. What is it, Ida?
Yeah.
How does he kind of fit that legacy and continue to move forward there?
Yeah, it's funny because, kickers are kind of like, it's kind of like recruiting a hitter. There is a batting average, there's, runs knocked in, there's extra bases, there's slugging percentage. You can look at a kicker and go like, all right, and you can watch film, but it's like, what's his percentage on field goals? What's his difference on field goals? How many touchbacks has he had? So I think over the last bunch of years, we've brought in some, pretty solid kickers. And, I was one of those guys too. When I looked at it, I go like, all right. I compared him to Gabe a couple years ago because, he had such a good run here. And he's, I think Gabe's high field goal was like 46 yards when he got here. His percentage of kicking balls in the end zone was a lot lower than I is. So I looked at that and I said, okay, well, he's kicked at the college level. He's got multiple 50-yard field goals made. He's sitting there at about 46% touchback. Now he's coming to kick at, 4,000 feet. It's, with the elevation here, what he's been able to do, I think he's going to be a guy who can come in and give us a chance to put some points on the board, when you get kind of stalemated a little further back. So if we can continue to do that, that'd be big. We were a couple field goals away from some walk-off victories last year, so we got to be a little bit better there.
Just kind of want to go back maybe to the quarterback position and more specifically Trey and Kalani. How do you feel that each of their skill sets fit into this offense, and maybe off the field, why you feel that they were good fits for this program?
Yeah, they're a little different. Kalani's probably a little bit more dual threatish, but he is a thrower first. Trey's a big kid. If you haven't seen him yet, he's every bit of 6'3". He's 220 some odd pounds. He's a big guy. He's got big stature, but he's an athlete. He can move around. He's not unversatile at all. There are things that we can do. So again, number one thing for us, is decision making, right? It's accuracy, poise in the pocket, and toughness. You got to have all those things. So good thing for us is we're going to go out there. Again, when you recruit guys in these small amount of cycles, to me, you got to be really careful. If there's a certain type of quarterback that you're like, hey, we got to have a guy that's just like this. Well, then you take this big group of quarterbacks you're recruiting, and it kind of narrows it down to a small group, right? So to us, we're kind of like, Coach Yost is running enough diverse offenses with a lot of different types of guys where it's like, all right, let's look at this entire quarterback world, right? Who are the best guys we can bring into the building, right? And then we'll go ahead and tweak around their abilities. If these guys are not going to be your natural runners, can they run some power reach stuff? Yeah, they can, right? But you're not going to live off it like you did a couple years ago, These guys are more throwers. So when we get into spring, we're going to find out what their strengths are. We're going to find out what their weaknesses are, and we're going to tweak what we do to their strengths to help us win football games.
Since we were last year, you guys got a new football admin in Molly, and there's been a lot of staff changes as well besides that. Just how do you feel about Molly and just her being an admin for you guys, and just also...
Well, consider she's sitting right behind me. She's the best administrator.
I know, I saw her.
I'm just teasing. No, you're right. So it's all relationship based, right? At the end of the day, the one thing that I think Molly and Joe and everybody have done is they just jumped right into the deep end. They're like, all right, what are the band-aids we got to rip off? What are the things we got to talk about? Because at the end of the day, the uncertainty is what kind of, it kind of festers, right? So when you're on the same page as people, there's a genuine care for this place moving forward. They're willing to fight the battles that need to be fought, to give you the resources that you need. It just, you're on the same page, So that part's been really good. They've been really open about things, really communicative. They're, sometimes, you can work, and it hasn't been that way here, but sometimes you can work for people where they're kind of like in their own little tower and you don't ever really see them. They're out and about, they're walking through the offices, they're talking with coaches, developing relationships, they're getting to know our players. So that's been a really, really good thing. So for me personally, it's been great. I don't think it could have started any better, as far as just them being open, like, hey, who are you? What are you about? What do you stand for? What are your goals, aspirations? What do you want to do with this program? This is what we see, this is what we think, and this is how we think we can help you get there. So I think it's just matching up those philosophies and making sure you're all on the same page so you can go fight together. Because at the end of the day, I've never seen a coach win by himself, and I've never seen administration have success by themselves. I've never seen players win by themselves. It takes an entire community working together to get the thing done.
Yes.
Just last question for me, just kind of generic one. Obviously, this team is just all on paper right now. You have the new incoming guys, and then you have the guys returning. You haven't seen them together yet. If you had to say what you would hope this 2026 team would be, or the identity that they will be, what would it be right now before you even see them?
So when they walked in the building, I said, all right, we've gone, we've recruited you guys, you got come from a bunch of different places, we've got guys coming back. I said, when this whole season's done, we want to be known by one word, and that's physical. We need to be a physically violent football team, right? We need to be the toughest team on the field. We need to train that way. We need to talk that way. We need to work. I mean, talent's talent. You know, at the end of the day, I always say, you know, culture eats talent for lunch, you know. So we need to go out and we got to create some grit, some toughness, you know, this that hard-nosed culture. We got to keep the chip on our shoulder. You know, we walked off the field after that last game last year. It was kind of a microcosm of the entire season, right? Play your tails off, right? Get down to the end, have a chance to win, and just find a way not to, right? So we've got that chip on our shoulder. We want to keep that. We want to make sure we add the physicality to it. You know, obviously there's the intelligence and the training and all that, but we want a culture of competition around here. And I think with a full year of being able to work with these guys, with the guys we brought in, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic. You know, I'm not going to say a lot this year. We're going to be kind of quiet about it, but you know, we're excited about this challenge that's in front of us, and I think we got, you know, right now, from what we've seen, you know, I feel like we've got the right group of guys to do it, but now we got to do our jobs as coaches, get these guys developed. They got to do their jobs as players and buy into everything that we're selling over here. And, you know, again, just dive into our resources and go win football games.